Welcome to the Counselor Overview for creating a professional report. In this tutorial, we're going to review the process for collecting test results as well as creating the final report. Now, in this specific example, we're going to go through kind of a typical adult audiologic evaluation. But it's very important to note this entire process can be modified based on your specific needs. So if you do specialty testing such as tinnitus, vestibular, pediatric, electrophys, if you're a speech pathologist or any type of therapist that is utilizing counselor, this process can be easily modified to assist. So if you have any specific needs, the counselor support team can help you get your templates in place as well as walk you through the specific process that you will utilize to create your reports. Okay, so we'll begin here in a patient visit that's already been created. So in this example, we've already taken our case history with the patient, which has started to build our reports. So if you have any questions about utilizing the Counselor Insight feature, I encourage you to watch the Counselor Insight tutorial to see the ins and outs and the different capabilities of this tool. But we're going to jump ahead to the Professional Report tab. Here we can see that a significant portion of the case history has already been written. Nearly all of it, as well as some recommendations are in place. Once again, those came over from Insight. So as we were seeing the patient and talking with them through their case history, that information then pre-populated the professional report. Okay. Of course, if you are starting this from scratch, and you certainly could, you can always just jump directly into the history, into the results, into the recommendations, and add templates and text that way. And we'll show that in just a bit here. Okay, but once again, in this patient's encounter, what we're going to say here is we've completed the case history, and now it is time to start testing. So we'll then go ahead and click on either left or edit right audiograms. It's important to note that Counselor is no compatible, meaning you can utilize any testing equipment that you like. If your testing equipment is no compatible, great. You would go about your typical process for collecting audiometric results, and then from NOAA, you can send the test results into Counselor, right? If the other side of that coin, if you have standalone equipment, you can easily enter the test data into Counselor, as I'm doing right now, and then pull that data back into NOAA. So the point being is, it doesn't matter what testing equipment you have, whether it's NOAA compatible or not, you only ever have to enter your test data one time, and Counselor will be able to, either send the data from NOAA to Counselor, or you can pull the data from Counselor back into NOAA. Okay. Now, as you can see here, I am adding the data directly in. You could be doing this on a touch screen, like a touch screen tablet or laptop, as well as a desktop using a mouse or whatever you have. So very simple to get this data in place. Once again, if you're sending the data over from NOAA, you wouldn't have to concern yourself with any of these. But if you are entering the test data directly into Counselor, of course, there are a whole variety of different options that you can utilize to get your specific thresholds in place and then modify them as needed, right? So if we want to change these up, we certainly can. If we need to delete something, we certainly can as well. If you want to make something ear specific or whatever the case may be, masked, right? There's different options along the way there. What we'll see as well is that options for getting data on the audiogram exist down below here as well. So we'll come to that in just a moment. Now, with the test data in place, whether you entered it directly into Counselor or if you sent it over from NOAA, Counselor will do two things for you automatically. First, it'll look to see if there are any previous audiograms. If there are, it'll show the date. You click on the date, and it will show you a shadow audiogram. So you have that immediate comparison of what the patient's previous thresholds were, versus today's. Okay, and if you want, you can even show that comparison on the final report. So in the case of like a sudden loss, for example, you may want to show that comparison, or a progression over time. You may want to show that. Okay, if need be, you also can bring open the report from that previous session. All right, now the second thing Counselor will do automatically is it will look at the thresholds for each year, and it will determine the classification of the hearing loss. Counselor utilizes the AMCLAS system for this classification. And so in this case, the AMCLAS system is saying that this is a sloping hearing loss. It's mild to moderate, it's sensory neural, and it is symmetric. Okay, that is the initial classification. If you do not like that classification, you can change this at any time, right? You simply say, yeah, I'm thinking more this is like normal to moderate, or this is flat, or it's mixed, or it's asymmetric, right? Whatever it is that you think is appropriate for describing this hearing loss, you can set this however you wish. And that's a particularly important decision, whether you leave it set as it is, or you modify it, because what it means is that this will be used to save you a bunch of time going forward in the workflow. For example, when you go to write the results section of your report, you don't have to type mild sloping to moderate sensory hearing loss. Counselor can do that for you. When you go to determine your codes, counselor will look out the classification for each year and help you to determine the appropriate codes. Now in this case, it's a pretty straightforward code, right? Just a bilateral sensory hearing loss, so an H90.3, a very common code. However, if things get a little more unusual, right, where maybe the right ear is normal and the left ear is sensory neural, or the right ear is conducted and the left is mixed, those codes can get fairly challenging to figure out. Well, Counselor has all those scenarios already built in behind the scenes. So as you go through your process here, you either approve or modify the classification. Counselor then uses the classification for each year to help you determine the codes. So it can really make this process much simpler for you. And it means you don't have to be a coding and reimbursement expert in order to make sure you're getting the proper codes on your claims. Okay, as we go down here, of course, you can see a wide range of subtests. If you prefer to enter the data through drop-downs versus right on the audiogram, you certainly can do that as well. You also have the ability to enter specific masking thresholds. So if you want to, you can actually say, okay, this is masked advanced, and then you put in the actual presentation for the masking sound. Okay, and there's the ability to show them the final report too, if you wish as well. Now just moving on here, tympanometry, once again, if this was sent over from NOAA, this would all pre-populate, but of course you can enter your data. You also can draw your TIMP as needed, okay? Or if you don't like that, you go ahead and start over, okay? Same thing goes for the rest of these areas. You enter as much or as little as applies. Once again, if it's sent over from NOAA, you wouldn't have to do this. And specifically from NOAA, counselor can receive the AC/BC speech, word rec, MCLs, UCLs, sound field, as well as TIMPs, reflexes, and decay. That information can all flow over from NOAA. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a little bit more data here for recognition. If you wanted to, of course, you can also bring open the actual word list within Counselor. So if you are presenting to this patient, either monitor live voice or recorded presentation, and you want to track this directly in Counselor, you certainly can. So here we'd say, okay, we want that correct. Maybe that one was incorrect. Maybe you want to actually track what the patient said, right? So maybe instead of eyes, they said, I'll just go ahead and type this in. They said ties, right? So you then can go ahead, finish out the list, and then typically for the purposes of counseling or just understanding the patient's hearing loss better, you can actually view those results. So you can bring open and see what's correct, incorrect, as well as if there are any replacements that you entered. Okay. Now, once again, you can enter as much or as little data as you see fit. We'll just kind of jump ahead here. It's important to note that OAEs, as well as speech and noise, specifically the QuickSyn, do not transfer over from NOAA. And so this gives you the ability, of course, then to add that information if you wish. For example, QuickSyn, very easy to get in place. You just say what the transducer is, or the method of delivery, and then you can pick the preset levels, or you can type in whatever you wish here. Right, so I'll just pick the preset level there. You also have the ability to store, or I should say to add an audiogram annotation to the audiogram itself. So if there's something you wanted to say, for example, let's say, maybe I'll say no significant shift, okay? And maybe you want to type more than that, but we're going to say no significant shift, and we can see how that then can be added directly to the audiogram itself, right? And so particularly if you work in environments where the ENT may want to see those notes, or perhaps you're sending that to a referring physician, you know they like to see that analysis or comments directly in the audiogram, you can do so very easily. Okay. Now at the bottom of the screen, you'll see there are three buttons here. Continue main screen, continue save, continue editing, and continue history. If you are entering the test data into Counselor, we do recommend that you click Save, Continue Editing a few times during the testing process. And this is because, of course, Counselor is a cloud-based system, so we want to make sure that you're getting those data locked in. So typically, maybe when you're changing between ears, right, which of course you can do here, you also can do from up here, right? So maybe you're going to switch ears, go ahead and give that a quick save. Or you're switching between headphones or inserts and you're switching over to bone conduction, right? Just go ahead and give it a quick save and all your results are locked in. Okay, but it's important to note that all three of these buttons will save your work. So at any point, maybe you get interrupted Or maybe you sent this test data over from NOAA. All you had to do is kind of look at the classification. You said, I'm all good there. You click continue main screen. It'll save your work and then take you back to the main screen, right? So when in doubt, if you're in the audiogram screen and you want to make sure it's saved, just go ahead and click continue main screen. It'll save and then take you back to the main screen. All right, now that we're back in the main screen, we can see the classification of the hearing loss for each year, okay? As well as the information we already have from the case history part of the patient encounter, okay? Now at this part, a point in the patient encounter, typically you go right into patient counseling, and the counselor does have the patient report. So if you have any questions about the patient report, I encourage you to watch the utilizing the patient report tutorial as far as how to take advantage of all the different features that are built in there as well. Okay, but in this example, we're going to say we're moving ahead. We've counseled the patient, and once again, typically at this point, you'd go ahead to the General Information tab and generate your codes to use for the purposes of billing. So if you have any questions about that, we encourage you to watch the tutorial on generating your IC10, CPT, and MIPS codes. Once again, for this tutorial, we're going to stay focused on the professional report. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we've counseled the patient, we've generated codes, we've created a super bill or anything we need to do, and then we're going to jump back to the professional report. And the focus at this point is to get this report finalized and out the door as quickly and as accurately as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and jump into the edit history area. Okay, this is where we can see that actual text. We can clean up any text that we want. So for example, if we want to add in, kind of quotes that sounds like rushing water, we can leave the no sleep issues alone. Maybe something else came up during the conversation that we want to add, right? Now, all these templates within the history section are fully customizable. They come preset within Counselor, but you can modify these, you can add to them. That's all available, of course, under administration to modify your templates. But you do have a tool within this screen. If your security profile enables you to modify templates, you'll see there's an option to create a new template. So if you're thinking of something, a phrase or something that you really like, that you want to add to this report and maintain for later, you can simply click create new template. You can pick your category, you can give a little kind of hint name for the template itself, and then you put in as much as you want. And it will add it to the existing report, and it will save it in your template list moving forward. Okay. Once again, if you ever want to add something, go ahead and just click. I'll just grab here. Let's say deny any fluctuations in hearing sensitivity, and it automatically then adds it to the end of the report. Okay. Now, or I should say the end of the case history portion of the report. If you do want to change the title of this, by the way, you certainly can. At any point, you can say, I'd rather not call this history, I might call it subjective, right? Or some other phrase. You can certainly do that. You also have the ability to import previous history. So if you have seen this patient before, whether this be for the exact same evaluation, maybe it's a follow-up hearing test, or you are on the speech pathology side of things and you're creating a plan of care, and so you want to move those results, the case history, forward into this report. Whatever the case may be, you can simply click there and it will bring that text in. Okay. But once you have completed with all your work in the history screen, you go ahead and click Continue Results. This is then going to take you, of course, to the results screen. It's important to note that the transition going from the history screen to the results screen, there was a save built in there. So just by doing that, by clicking Continue Results, Counselor saved and then took us forward into the results section. Now, just like we saw with the case history, there are a whole series of templates in place, right? These would all be customized for you. You can have composite templates, right? So you can keep things really simple where maybe you have individual lines and you piece it together however you wish, or you could say, gosh, I have a lot of just consistent kind of testing protocols that we do. And so with one click, in this case, we have otoscopy, TIMPS, pure tone testing, as well as word recognition. And you'll notice here that it's kind of hard not to notice the highlighted yellow areas. These are called placeholders. This is where Counselor will automatically fill in this information for you. So you don't have to type out the configuration of the hearing loss, the classification of hearing loss, I should say. You don't have to type in whether it's symmetric. There are all kinds of different placeholders available within Counselor. And the Counselor support team can help you get, various placeholders, the age of the patient and pronouns, their name, and various test results, automatically insert the sound field aided SRTs, right? It can get highly specific based on what you need. So this is an area where we would encourage you to reach out to the Counselor support team if you have any custom templates you'd like built, particularly if they contain a lot of placeholders, also if they contain tables. If there's certain things you'd like to see as a table within Counselor, we're happy to build that for you, of course, at no charge, based on your specific specifications. It's also important to note that Counselor has a whole series of templates built in already behind the scenes. So if you send us something or you reach out to us, we may already have that built and then can just apply it to your account very, very quickly. Now, this is a pretty short template, right? But the idea is that whether it's short or long, you click once, twice, 3 times, right, and you have that information filled in. Now, it's also important to note that if you're looking at this view and saying, I'd like to see this a bit larger, there's a feature here just above the text that says options, little gear wheel, and you can change the size of the viewing window. So you can change to medium, large, and that comes in very handy, particularly if you are using longer templates. Auditory processing, tinnitus, vestibular, speech pathology. Those tend to be instances where you've got just more text and tables and you want to see that all in one view. So you can easily do that, click close, and then it will update the view of this window, not only for this specific patient visit, but moving forward as well. It'll remember it on that computer, so you don't have to change it each time. Okay? But in this example, once again, we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're going to say, okay, let's go ahead and continue to recommendations. Once again, the idea here is that we can get this report completed as quickly as possible. And you notice in the results screen, there was an import previous results. I apologize. Here we have an import previous recommendations. So you can see as you move through this process, if there is a previous patient encounter, you can pull in that information. Okay, now here we'll see all 3 of the recommendations that are already in place from what we collected during the case history part of the encounter via Counselor Insight. Okay, now you can go ahead and you add more to this. You can click or tap on whatever it is you wish to add. So let's just say pursue a trial with amplification. Let's utilize strategies for speech understanding. And here we can see, by the way, there's a pop-up letting us know our next patient's here. So we're going to go ahead and dismiss that. Let's get this report done straight away so we can be available for the next patient. Okay. If these are out of order, that's perfectly fine. We can rearrange them once we get back to the main screen. Of course, you can type in any specific recommendations that you want as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the main screen. This will save my work and takes us back to the main screen. Now back in the main screen, once again, we can see the classification of the hearing loss. We can see the case history, of course. We can see the results. Now the results, instead of having those placeholders, are now filled in. Okay. Here we can see the 5 recommendations we have in place. Let's go ahead, move these around. Maybe we decide there's one we don't want anymore. Go ahead and delete it. We can edit from here, whatever you need to do. Okay, so at this point, we essentially have our report written. Now it's just a matter of kind of finalizing things. If, just as if you do have other needs within these reports, maybe you need a 4th section, because here you can see we have history 1, results 2, and recommendations, essentially 3 sections in this report. You say, I'd really like to have a 4th section, maybe for impressions or something. That is why we have the custom section. The custom section works in the same way as the history and results, where you can have templates, you can click on them, you can add that text in, right? Once again, it can be short phrases with placeholders or without. It can be long templates with tables, whatever the case may be. And then a custom section, you can title it whatever you wish. So that gives you a very quick and easy way to have an additional section within the profession report as needed. Okay, so let's have a look at the options here regarding referring physicians and additional recipients. Okay, if the patient already has a primary or referring physician noted in their profile, you'll see this option here, in which case you can just click on it and it will add in that, in this case, the primary physician. Ultimately, you can always just jump into the patient profile itself, into the edit referral section itself, and you can then see, okay, where's my list of referring physicians? In this case, let's go ahead and say Dr. Breckenridge is her primary care, okay? So now we can see Dr. Breckenridge's information. We don't have to look this up or figure it out. It's all preset within the physician profile. which of course is all done under administration and the physician list. And then we can decide, all right, in this case, how do we want to proceed? Do we want to have specific language on the fax cover sheet? Yes. Do we want a cover letter? If so, which template do we want to use, right? And once again, these all can be customized for you. You have the tools, once again, under administration to do so. Do you need medical clearance for this patient? Let's say yes. Okay, you can pick your templates, all customizable. So just with those, few clicks, you've now built your fax cover sheet, your cover letter, as well as your med clearance form, right? This whole process is paperless. So you're not going to the file cabinet, have to find a fax cover sheet and hand write it and, fill out the med clearance form. It's all built in, okay? Now, you may want to have additional recipients, right? This may be, okay, we're sending this to the primary care physician plus their ENT or something. Or maybe this patient was self-referred, but they did request, or you asked them if they wanted, their report sent to their primary, in which case you added them as additional recipient, right? Or let's say you're sending this to the primary, but you also work with the school district and you need to send this out to 7 people. No problem, right? You just first click on the add additional recipient. You choose that additional recipient from the list. In this case, let's take Dr. Baldwin. Same idea, fills in the information for you. You could pick a different cover letter if you wish. You can decide, a fax cover sheet, I should say. You can decide if you want a cover letter. Maybe you only wanted a fax cover sheet and cover letter for Dr. Baldwin, and you don't want to send the medical clearance form, right? Perfectly fine. So once again, you could go through and add as many additional recipients as you like. You'll see they're CC'd here, and each one of those recipients, the primary referral as well as the additional recipients, will receive their own version of the report. So counselor is going to customize the fax cover sheet, the cover letter, potentially the med clearance form to that recipient, right? You don't have to go in and manually do that. All right, at this point, let's have a look at the reports here. So let's see what Dr. Breckenridge will receive. So let's look at the full report here. And this is going to show us the fax cover letter. And of course, this would have your logo with your information. So this is all branded for you and your practice. But we can see the fax cover sheet. We can see the cover letter. We can see the med clearance form, right? This is all customized behind the scenes in the templates and then modified on the fly for this specific patient and for this specific recipient. As we scroll down, now we can see the professional report. Okay. Now this can be reconfigured, and I'll show you how that can be done in just a moment here. But the idea overall is to get you to this point as quickly and as accurately as possible. Okay, so taking you all from Counselor Insight, collecting the case history, to collecting test results, to updating the history results, recommendations, recipients, etc. We want you to get this done as quickly as possible. Okay, if you look at this and decide, oh, that's not what I need to make some modifications here, you absolutely can, right? First off, you can add attachments. So if there's something you need to add to this report, maybe it's a document you've already saved to your computer and you want to upload it, or you want to scan it, because Counselor does have a direct scanner feature. It goes right from the scanner directly into Counselor. Or you want to use the Counselor Snapshot feature, which is a mobile app we have available for tablets and smartphones, where you can take a picture of whatever it is you wish to capture, and it will add it to the report. When you do that, when you scan or when you really any attachments, upload, scan, or using Snapshot, Counselor will make those attachments HIPAA compliant in that it'll automatically add a footer stating the patient's name, date of birth, date of service, and the page, so page 4 of 4. Okay, so you can add as many documents as you like as well. Now, once again, if you need to reconfigure this report, change something around, you can always click here on Report Options and then Edit Options. And this is going to give you the ability to say, hey, for this specific report, this is what I want to see, right? Do I want to change some things around? Maybe I want to change the audiogram to threshold only instead of an image, right? Or make it split. Maybe tympanometry, do I want to show the image or not, right? There's a whole series of options you can do here. You can set up your own defaults. So in specific scenarios, you may want to fully reconfigure the options here, right? So you add more or take things away, change the font size, the title of the report. You also can modify either through the report layout templates or on the fly. You can also change the order, right? So if you said, okay, when I'm saying to this specific group of physicians, I want to flip this around, it's their request to have the results first and the audio data second and the recommendations third, right? Whatever the case may be. So you can, not only can you change what's on the report, you can rearrange it as needed. Now, for reports where an audiogram isn't completed, of course, you're not going to have these checked, right? So you'll have all these boxes unchecked, and it will remove it from, of course, the professional report. And in the case of like maybe a tinnitus eval where you previously did an audio or vestibular or speech pathology, you would, in that case, you would just see the text. You wouldn't see the audio table or temps or any of that as well. Now, if you do make any changes here, it's very important that you click Save. That will lock in the changes and update the report. Okay, this is one area in Counselor where you do want to make sure you click Save. Other areas we were walking through, history to results to recommendation, it was saving at each point along the way there as we were moving from one step to the next. This one you do want to make sure you click Save. Okay. All right, so now we have our report completed. We have our referral source, our audition recipient. Let's get this guy sent out. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to click on Actions in the top menu bar and then Send Reports. Counselor has features built in for emailing as well as faxing reports directly from Counselor to the recipient. You do not need any hardware or software attached. Counselor takes care of this process for you. It is unlimited and there's no charge. Okay, so what's going to happen first is they'll bring open and show us the recipients that we currently have. So here we can see Dr. Breckenridge. If I click on the drop down here, I'll also see Dr. Baldwin and of course the patient. So in the case of the patient, maybe I want to email her the patient counseling summary, right? But I want to send the full report and counseling summary to both Dr. Breckenridge and Dr. Baldwin, right? So it allows you a lot of specificity as to what goes out and to whom. Okay, so first we'll start with Dr. Breckenridge. What you'll notice is it does note that she prefers email. That's in her profile. And so Counselor automatically set this to email. So in this case, we'll say, okay, let's send both the profession report and patient report to Dr. Breckenridge. It automatically fills in the physician's email address. We can add a CC address if we want, and then we go ahead and say, okay, here's the template we wish to use. Okay, and just like that, we have now sent out both the professional report and, the professional report and the patient report. Okay, now we move right on to the next. All right, well, let's send this out to Dr. Baldwin. Great. So now we have noted that he prefers faxing. So we'll change this over to fax. It fills in his fax number. We're going to send both the professional and patient report via fax. We click send, and now that fax is out the door, right? And these efforts, the emailing and the faxes, are tracked within Counselor. So you can see that from the dashboard. There's a dashboard which is dedicated to send reports. You can see it from within the patient profile. You also can see it back in the patient visit screen in the general information tab. So we can look in the visit status and see, okay, great, both the professional and patient reports were sent, and let's see what happened there. So there we go. We can see the email and the fax. Okay, and then as the status updates, this will change as well. Okay, so overall, the process, once again, of creating the professional report, we want it to be streamlined from, taking the case history, test results, creating the actual report, and then getting it sent out. Okay, of course, if you have any questions about this process, or if we can assist you in any way, please give us a call, email us, live chat us. We are always happy to help. Thank you very much for joining us for the Counselor tutorial for creating a professional report.